I've been to 4 job interviews, managed to get 2 job offers, and eventually made a choice on one, but resigned from it. Hello everyone and welcome to Rants. I'm Fira and I will be ranting relatable life issues. So today's topic will be on how to ace a job interview. So you're a fresh grad and the job market isn't easy to penetrate. Why? Because you're unskilled. You have no relevant experiences. The company just doesn't want to see your resume at all. And trust me, I've been there, I've done that, and definitely it's not something that you should be worried of. It's all going to be debunked. I wouldn't say debunked, but it's all going to be okay. So first thing first, before you get an interview, you need to actually make sure that your resume is enough to convince the employer. The problem with resumes is that we tend to blow things out of proportions and eventually give skills that we're not even confident of. So always try to avoid making these kind of mistakes. It's little, but it actually plays a part in making your resume viewed. So pro tip, avoid mass applying using the same email and the same resume. This is because employers have their connections and you might end up getting your email forwarded to the same person. So if they see that your resume and your email template is the same as another company, what difference do you give to them? How do you differentiate from your other applications? And one thing about making resumes is always try to tailor to the position that you apply. So for example, that you're applying for a human resource manager or I'd say an accountant, try to see if the job description mentions about a specific software. If you're aware of that software and you know how to use it, add in the skill into your resume so that it increases the chance of your resume getting picked out of the 100 applicants that they may have. Another tip that I can give is that never try to be untrue in your resume. I know that we tend to want to, I'd say, impress the employer or the company that we really want to work in, but always be true to yourself and always be true to the employer. This is because if you make promises that you can keep, it will eventually take a toll on you. Once you've got the whole resume part done, you're on an express train to an interview. So there's actually 3 stages to an interview: pre-interview or before interview, post-interview, and what I meant during interview and post-interview. So pre-interview or before interview, always prepare your documents. Double check them. It's okay to bring extra and it's definitely better to have a clear file and segregate your original copies and your photostated copies. So this actually saves you time because you already know that you're going to give the photostated copies to the employer, and also to avoid you giving the original copy to the employer. You do not want to go back to the office and say, excuse me, I think I gave you my original copy. That's a no-no. Pro tip, never assume that the employer has your copy of resume. This is because sometimes the person in email that contacted you may not be the person who will be interviewing you. So they have actually no collection or no data of you. And even if they do, they won't make the time to print it for you. So you make sure that you print yourself, make extra copies, because there's no telling that you're going to interview with one person only or you're going to end up getting interviewed in rounds. So it's definitely better to bring extra. I'd say in the range of 3 to 5 resumes, so that you know it's not wrong to be prepared. It's the smart move actually to always be prepared. Do your research, okay? Because this is actually one of the common mistakes that most interviewees do. They don't actually give a thorough checkup on the whole background of the company or the background of the industry that the company is working in. So when they get bombarded about the questions about the company, you tend to get tongue-tied and you eventually don't know how to answer. Famous questions that I've been asked are, tell me about the company in your own words. So that is actually something that you would be like, how can I tell about the company if I'm not even working in the company yet? So always be prepared and make your background check about the company. Try to find out if the company practices certain values or culture in their work, because some interviewers tend to ask you about their culture and their values and how you would adopt it in your work. For instance, one of the company that I interviewed in actually has 5 values that they practice in work. So during my interview, I was asked if I had limited resources and I still needed to reach my target for the day, what would I do? So this value actually reflects their value of to think out of the box and to never give up. Now this is important because the way you answer will reflect how they see you and how you fit in the company's culture. Prepare your interview outfit. As trivial as this may seem, first impressions actually do matter. And if you manage to wow them on a piece of paper, you certainly want to wow them even more in person. This is why I said background checks are also important, because it also helps you in deciding an interview attire. So background research on the industry or the company itself and how they dress. If they require you to dress up formally, then you would know to wear suit and tie for men and possibly skirts or suit pants for girls. Pantsuit. Okay. I've luckily been blessed with companies that actually don't do formal, so I wasn't required to dress up out of the ordinary. But per se, if you're applying for a white collar job like an accountant or sales manager, there's definitely a certain degree of formality that you need to adhere. So try to make sure that your dress attire is appropriate to the company's industry or background. And it is definitely okay to, I'd say, overdress, as long as it's not too flashy. And one more thing for girls, jangan pakai baju kenduri. This is something that some girls actually do because possibly lack of outfit or I don't know. But try to avoid wearing baju kenduri that is over flamboyant or overly excessive in terms of the money or whatever. Now to the important part, during interview. So during interview is the most, I'd say, crucial, because this is when you actually sell yourself in person. So if your selling skills suck, you would suck. Definitely. I'm saying this like from my experience from the first interview, second interview I went. It was definitely about how you carry yourself for your audience. So during interview, it is extremely important to take note of your body language. Your body language actually affects the way you think, the way you speak, and it gives a different perception as well to the interviewer. And pro tip, always give a handshake. If they don't offer your hand, you offer yours, okay? Try not to slouch. I say try because I know habits tend to get the best of us and we end up, getting all frizzled up. So try not to slouch and be proud of yourself. Carry yourself with proudness, because definitely you work hard on your degree, you work hard on your diploma, you've had relevant experiences even though you actually are unaware of it. So be proud. Another important part of during the interview is never let the interviewer dominate you. When the interviewer opens a window to ask questions, always ask questions. It doesn't matter, there's no, I think people tend to say like, what if my question sounds dumb or stupid? There is definitely no dumb questions when it comes to interview, because you need to remember this will be the place that you spend 8 hours in, and you want to make sure that it's 8 hours of heaven, at least we hope, and not 8 hours of the opposite lah, hell. So make sure that you always have questions. It's okay if the question sounds dumb or it doesn't sound like something that the interviewer even wants to know from like the side of yourself or whatever, but it's definitely better to have a question than no questions at all. This is because by asking questions, you actually show another side of you, which is being curious. when you are curious about the company or you are curious about the job, it actually shows your learnability in terms of how they can coach you. So that means that, oh, whenever they teach you things, you will always ask. Okay, that's how they assess you. So that's why it's always important on how you carry yourself. I think people will also ask me what are the questions that I usually ask. So if you don't want to sound dumb, or you think that, okay, I don't have any questions at all, or the questions that Google tells me are too, I'd say, I don't know, basic, or you don't want to like use the same questions or whatever, my favorite go-to question would be, why is the position vacant? So this actually helps you evaluate on whether or not you want to help fill in that role, and you also find out if the person who left that role, left for obvious reasons, or if it was a good leave, or if they were sacked, stuff like that. So this gives you an overall, I'd say, view on how the company assess their employees and stuff like that. Another favorite question of mine would be, what do you like about working here? So this gives a chance on how the employee, the existing employee itself, tell you about the company. So if a person gives you like an enthusiastic answer, or it gives you like a sense of, I'd say they managed to convince you that it's a great place to work, then you know that it's a go. If it's not, then it's okay, you can always try and look for other options. Now, I also want to emphasize that when you work, when you're a fresh grad, there is no saying that this job is your permanent job. You have to love it even if you hate it. No, that's no such thing. You need to make sure that you're allowed to do what you love rather than being told to love what you do. For me, I don't see the point of working like 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, or even more, but end up feeling dissatisfied with your overall achievements. Like, I mean, imagine if you're working 9 hours a day and you're not even proud of it. Like, what's the point? Another important point during interview is to be honest. It's definitely okay to be honest, and by honest, I actually mean to be true to yourself and to be true to the company, as well as your expectations of it, because most of us tend to want to impress, so we end up saying yes to everything. If you can't work on weekends, you're not the type to like work on weekends, tell the company and try to provide reasons for it too, because as you know, interviewers are humans first before they are actually employers. So they will be able to empathize with your reasoning, and that they will try to accommodate with what your situation is. Despite that you're desperate for a job, know your worth. It's not about, I'd say, like being choosy or whatever, but it's more like, if you think the opportunity given is not as I'd say worthwhile, it's definitely not something you should go to. Finally, post interview, I have to give a disclaimer that I actually don't do this, but some human resource managers, as I know, actually appreciate this. So it all depends on your, I'd say, I mean, because this stuff is actually done out of courtesy, so it's actually about giving thanks when due. After an interview, most candidates like me actually tend to forget this step, so that's why I don't normally do it. But if you're really keen on wanting that job and making sure that the interviewer knows, I mean, not knows, I mean, the interviewer remembers you, send a thank you email to say that you appreciate the time taken to interview, or you appreciate the opportunity given for getting interviewed and stuff like that. It's actually small, but all these small things actually count. So like I said, recruiters or employers actually have connections, so even though that they might not select you or whatever, there's a chance of your resume getting forwarded to another recruiter who they might think that, oh, this kid is actually good in your company, I think they can excel in your company. So it's always important to give thanks when due. Alright, I think I managed to cover up almost the most important aspects on how I ace my interview. So if you have any questions about anything at all that you're unclear about, feel free to comment down below. And if you have a topic that you want to suggest for me to cover on, feel free to comment as well below. And if you haven't, click subscribe, turn on the notification, and you can see more of me.